All right, guys, welcome back to the Raised Hunting Podcast. And I'm joined today by Warren and Easton again. I can't seem to get rid of him no matter how much I try.
That's not true. We got rid of Warren for 2 days.
He's been sick. But hopefully he's feeling a little better now, out from being under the weather.
Yeah.
So,
No,
but
I just don't have body aches. I have mental aches, too.
Well, that's just a common day occurrence because your brain's trying to work so hard it can't figure it out.
So
Sitting in the same office with you.
That's valid.
So before I introduce today's topic, do we have some shout outs we need to do?
We do. On Apple, we got to give a shout out.
Short out.
Because it's been happening to me the last 2 days.
Oh, boy. Call me catfish.
Shout out.
Jeez. Shout out, holy moly, to Barno1136. Says, wonderful. Lots of valuable information. I enjoy the banter between you and the two special guests every week. Glad my friend Phil pointed me in your direction, who is also a great friend who helped me get my first Iowa gobbler this past April. Keep up the good work and looking forward to what comes next. Thank you, Barno1136. Spotify guys, you guys are always on top of it. We love you. And we better give some love to the YouTube guys, because I'm going to call you guys out. You're kind of complainers. If you don't get called out, you're kind of complainers. So we're making sure we're getting you and taking care of you, because we appreciate you too. So let me pull these up here. On the last one, Hunter's Gut, Crazy ZL404. Thank you. B&B Custom Game Calls. He was chiming in on the conversation. And I got to load this now because
How'd you find... I'm trying to find it for you guys.
the Darkest Hero. It's kind of a cool name. Shout out to you, brother. Butch Beard 6311. Shout out to you, my dude. And Wally Gator Films Outdoors 1506. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I think that's a good time to throw out a reminder that
There it is.
is this going to be the last one?
I would like it to be the last one, but
All right,
for all of you YouTube
this is going
guys,
to be the last podcast that goes on the Raised Hunting YouTube channel, because we're going to start posting a whole lot more YouTube videos here in 2024, and it gets way too confusing for us and probably you guys to try to navigate through those videos, and YouTube doesn't give us a good way to split them. So, with that being said, we've made a new YouTube channel that will be called the Raised Hunting Podcast. It's already up, and it's really hard to find right now because it doesn't have any people on it. So we will put the link in here.
There's only 14 subscribers, and there's a lot more of you that listen on YouTube.
It's hard to find, though, so you got to go through the link. Got to go through the link. But starting after this one, that is where you will only place on YouTube that you'll be able to find our podcast. You'll be able to find all of our videos and everything. And if you want to see any types of videos, let us know, because like I said, we're going to be doing a lot more of those. Those will all be on the Raised Hunting YouTube channel. All podcasts are now going to be on the Raised Hunting Podcast. So that will be taking effect next week.
Yeah.
Did you guys get all that? I hope you got all that. I hope you were taking notes.
In simple form, go follow the link in the description that goes to the Raised Hunting YouTube podcast channel. Just click that. Subscribe. Turn on your notifications. Watch us punch each other in the head on there, and you're golden.
Golden. All right. So today we're going to touch on a subject that seems to be top of mind everywhere right now, which brings up the subject. We're not going to necessarily talk about the one particular case that's going on, but poaching. What's it doing to hunting? How is it being treated? How are the states treating it? Just kind of talking about poaching in a general respect, or a general suspect, I guess you'd say. We see it here in Iowa. We see it in other states through social media, through reports and everything else. So it's not like it ain't just one state owns it. We all have part of it going on. But definitely there's some, it seems like an extremely hot topic right now because of what's going on in Ohio. So anyhow, so that's what we're going to talk about today, is talking about poaching. Who wants to start, or do you want me to throw out a question, or how do you?
I was just going to throw out an opinion on poaching, as far as if we're looking at states. I'm I would be curious for everybody else too, because we've lived in a couple states. You've lived in multiple states, but as far as experience-wise, I don't feel like it's all that accessible to have something happen with like if you were to catch a poacher. I don't know if other people have had the experiences or not. I've first-handed, for whatever reason, seem to have run into quite a few situations where I've had to call the DNR and sit in on other people and stuff. And I've had one time where I've had somebody like there like that, like a game warden, get out somewhere. And from everybody else's stories I've heard and stuff, a lot of people, they either just try to scare them off themselves or tell them to get off their land or whatever and don't do much else because they don't think anything's going to happen. So I guess I'm not really saying a whole heck of a lot on it. Besides, I'd be curious for you guys to leave a comment or message in or something of any of the stories that you've had, or if that's a common occurrence everywhere. I know it's very encouraged.
Right. So what you're questioning is, I know that Iowa has one. I know Montana had one. I can't remember. I'm sure they do, but those are two states that I lived in that have like a tip line. Yeah. You can call immediately if you see something going on, and then they're supposed to take over. And you're saying that you're not so sure that it's that effective.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know, maybe even from like a DNR standpoint, they've got to have a statistic on that, on how many calls they get a year or anonymous tips they get, things like that. I would think I'd be surprised that there's not very many.
When something's in the action, I don't think it's the tip line you're supposed to be calling.
Yeah,
you're supposed to be calling the warden or a sheriff or something. Like if somebody's on your property illegally.
That's different. That's trespassing.
Okay, let's say you're watching somebody shoot something illegally.
Yeah. I mean, according to, if you read exactly what like a lot of the websites say, is if you are witnessing or see anything of any sort of illegal activity, we want you to call this number, like for any situation.
Right.
And
I do
so
think
I see what you're saying.
That's what the line is designed for.
It's for anybody to be able to call it anytime. Now, I will say I know the DN officers typically in like the different areas that we hunt, and so I keep their numbers for that reason because I have had to call them personally on it before. And so that's quicker.
Well, and you can get
not everybody's going to know exactly which one it is, but it's all public record.
Well, you can get their numbers though off the websites too.
Yeah, and it'll say what county and stuff it is, but sometimes they all cover different areas or whatever else. In general, I think they're making it an easier way for you to be able to call that line.
In my opinion, I think that like a tip line or something is supposed to be more of like, hey, I found this and think that it may be related to some poaching case, or I think that if it's something that's going on that needs direct action now, they don't want you calling that line. They probably want you trying to call a warden or calling Fish and Game or calling a sheriff.
You got to take the opinion out of it. It's exactly what they say on their website, like verbatim. They say to any action, you're witnessing it, you're seeing it, you have anonymous information, call this
What's
number.
the Iowa one?
I just read conveniently the Ohio one. I'm going to go read that one too.
What's the Iowa one?
The tip. Theirs is tip. Or Iowa's is tip. Something Iowa tip.
And it specifically says that.
I just read the Ohio one. And it says that for any action or anything that you are witnessing, you should be calling the illegal events.
Here's the issue with it, though, is that I don't care where you call. There isn't enough wardens.
Yeah, but at the same time, all I'm saying is if you're calling a tip line, you know that's not being monitored.
It's supposed to be.
I think it's supposed to be.
You're telling me they have somebody on that tip line all the time?
I would imagine they have. So it should forward to each one.
It may go directly to dispatch.
From that tip line?
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't ever call it just to see what it does. I've never asked the question.
We should call it to see. Hey, guys, just checking in to see. This is a public record checking.
That's like calling 911 just to make sure it's working.
See if our phone lines are on still.
That's not the way that's supposed to be handled. So, but my point would be is I think what you're trying to say, and I think that is the case. Here's the thing. The reason that arson is so difficult to convict someone on, and I know this from the fire department, is you never technically catch, very rarely, or do you catch someone in the act.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, oh, look, he's got gasoline, pouring it on him. We saw him light all that, if someone sees him do that, then they report it, and now you got people that are witnesses and they're testifying, and it's not like catching someone in the act. And as you look at it more and more, as more years I've lived around and learned and heard and seen, poaching is the same thing. You very rarely catch someone in the act. It's the investigation that has to take place from the game wardens to convict someone on that, and so it becomes very, very what's the word?
I feel like it's gray.
Well, I don't think it's
And
gray.
unclear.
I think it's that they're trying to do a good job, but they're going to have to do a really good investigation.
Yeah.
Because we can just kind of air out a situation that we had. I think that we should talk about it at some point.
Yeah. Well, I think so.
We had
That's
multiple.
I think the first thing we should ask is, well, one, should I address the people that didn't like my take last week?
I don't.
Because I could just provide a
it's
little
an
more
opinion.
information on what. Yeah,
You know,
it is an
Why are
opinion.
you asking if you know that you're sitting here
Well, I
wanting
just don't
to?
know. No, I
Warren
don't.
doesn't do well when somebody comes at him for something,
That's not
even
true.
if they come at him very nicely.
I got no problem. One, I won't issue an apology and say that. But two, I got no problem going on with, because I'm very sound in my reasoning on the opinion that I have, and if it comes out that the dude is innocent, I'd be happy to apologize.
That's all you're going to say?
But if he's not,
Yeah.
but,
I mean, I
Well,
can
nobody
say more
knows
if
what
you
we're
want.
even talking about. So anyways, go on.
well, I think he's brought it up now, so we've got to do it.
Okay, so I made a comment last week. I said that the dude, one, I said if he's guilty, I didn't say he was guilty. I said if he's guilty, he's a piece of shit. And I think anybody would agree with that, right? If he's guilty, then he is a piece of shit.
If a poacher's a poacher, I mean,
Yes.
and in the worst kind of way.
Okay, and so now the thing that makes this case super unique, this is the one that shot this super big deer in Ohio, is that the kid was smart enough to go on to a podcast and tell this whole entire story of all these things for 3 hours. So you can go and listen to this whole story about him supposedly killing this deer and all these things that happen. And if you did something illegally, then that's probably not a very wise thing of you to do. So I've gone and listened to that podcast several times, and I listened to it a little bit before it all came out that it was poaching. And then I listened to the full thing after twice. And I think there's a lot of things in there that is very, very, he had a better chance of hitting the lottery than killing this deer. So the first thing that you got to look at is that he lied about the size of the property. Claims that the property was 30 acres. Then he come to find out the property's 8 acres. You can find it on OnX really easy, which that's also another odd thing to me, is if you had this spot where you killed this giant deer, why would you be so open about telling people exactly where it was? Who else has ever done that in the history of somebody that killed a 240-inch deer?
But that doesn't mean anything.
Unless
I
you
mean,
think you need to make sure that everybody knows
You're
where you
just
killed it to try to
clarifying
make
it,
sure
yeah.
that I didn't kill it where it
There's
wasn't
a lot
supposed
of
to be.
skepticism. That's the point of it. Is there's a lot of skepticism.
I'm just
Very
providing
unclear.
the information, that makes me conclude what I'm concluding. The next thing is that he says that he shot the deer. One, he had a compound bow, sold his compound bow because he needed money. Then buys a crossbow because he wants to make sure that him and his fiance and his kid can all use the crossbow. Breaks that crossbow somehow. Then isn't going hunting for whatever reason and decides that he's going to borrow his buddy's crossbow. Borrows his buddy's crossbow and stand, and then goes and hunts his sister's property for the first time ever, and shoots a 240-inch deer. Then he says that he hit it terrible, comes back to look for it the next day, which if you look at the piece of property on OnX, you could look for it from the kitchen. The kitchen,
8 acres can't.
I mean, you can see the whole property. There's no way that you'd have to go look for this deer in the manner that he speaks about in the podcast. We're going and we're looking around, and then my buddy smells the deer. That's what he says. His buddy smells the deer, and they find it. Anyways, they find it at 10:30 in the morning. Okay? So you just found a 240-inch deer at 10:30 in the morning, and all of us have one of these right here, and yet you don't take a single photo, not one picture for 7 hours?
The reason you're saying that is because the photos we have are at night of anything that was taken, harvest photos.
Yeah, even
doesn't-
he says in the podcast there's no daytime photos. He took them
Yeah.
all at night because they were waiting on a better camera. And then when I told you that, you said to take pictures at night?
Yeah.
Yes. So any of you out there, I want you to just ask yourself, the last buck that you killed, how many hours did you make it before you took a picture of it? What was yours?
Well, I would take pictures of mine probably within 30 minutes of getting to them, or an hour. Before I move them.
Okay.
Like 2 minutes.
Yep. I was maybe 10.
You're lying, too, because
15.
you sent us a picture of it on your text.
Nick, how long was yours? 5
Yeah.
minutes? Okay, so apparently this dude's the only person on the face of the earth that's managed to make it.
That's a really small pool to go off of.
I was going to
but
say,
yes.
because us four have
get it.
done.
Well, I guarantee you, everybody that's listening
Hold on,
is,
but let's play devil's advocate on what you're saying there. What does that prove that by him waiting till dark to take the picture?
well, what?
It
I
doesn't
think it's
prove
just,
anything.
I was
no,
gonna
it's
say, it
just
doesn't-
out of context. But then let's go to the next thing. So now the game warden comes out 6 days later, right?
Okay.
And can't find any blood. Can't show him any blood. Can't show him a gut pile. Okay.
The only thing I would
And
say
then-
that would be
Why-
left
why
from
no
the
gut
pile?
piles.
Huh? He
What?
said that the coyotes had cleaned it up.
I was just going to say the only thing that could understand with the gut pile is that the coyotes have eaten it. But if any of you guys have seen a gut pile after a while,
There's
even
usually
if they've
still
eaten
remnants.
it, you can tell there was something there.
Yep, says can't
Pretty
find
clearly.
anything. Says this on the podcast. Okay, and then not only that, the entire property had been brush hogged within that 6 days. Okay,
Yeah,
so
it's a lot of
I'm just gonna go off of deductive reasoning here, and say that the kid absolutely poached this deer, and I think that it's gonna be. If I'm wrong, but I'm pretty confident, especially too since Ohio DNR already took the deer, took the rack. I think that that's because they have a pretty strong case. He says that the game warden said, okay, yeah, we're good. And so because they were kind of asking like, well, why do you think the DNR came out? And he's like, oh, they just wanted to check things. And the guy says we're good. I'm like, oh, I'm sure he did. The game warden's not going to be like, yeah, sure looks like you poached this deer. He's
Right.
just going to take the information that he gathered and go on and then utilize that information in whatever way he needs.
Well, and everyone has their opinion. I'm not going to go. If he did it, I'm in 100% agreement with you. If he did it, he should be sentenced. He should be charged. He should be signed, sealed, and delivered, because what he has stolen from all the guys that hunt anywhere around there is huge. I mean, it's a once in a lifetime kind of deer. But he hasn't been charged yet. He hasn't been convicted. So I'm not going there yet. Now there is a discrepancy too. I guess what I have not personally seen the podcast. I've seen parts of it you showed me, but then there was some selling of the. Is it confirmed that he sold the rack?
that's
Or-
not confirmed.
From us. That's the problem here. Is there's a whole bunch of that's just stuff that I can give you that came out of his mouth.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch of other alleged things, such as that the rack was sold for $30,000 after he sat on the podcast and said that he'd have a hard time selling it for $400,000, and that it's not about money.
Which also, again, we don't have any way of knowing. There's way too many things to be.
Speculate.
I 100% agree with the fact that there is some fishy stuff going on. Now, the one thing I will say is this is the part that I kind of, to circle back, if he did cover his tracks well enough and just say that he did do something incorrectly, I wouldn't be all that surprised if he doesn't get charged with something because they don't find something.
He gets charged with
That
something.
he does not get charged with
does not
anything
get charged
because they
because-
don't find something. I
Well-
would not be surprised if that's kind of what I was getting at with my first question with everybody of what I guess kind of what's your confidence level of these things being figured out, because we can talk about ours, but we don't need to necessarily air out the amount of work that was put into that.
Well, I think to me, so the deer was killed November 10th, and then I don't think the DNR
13th or 9th.
No, he shot on the 9th.
Oh, found it.
Covers it on the 10th. So, and then I don't think they confiscated it until like 2 weeks ago or something like that.
Yeah, recently.
So they took, and then if they walked out there 6 days later, so they walked the property on the 16th, and then they waited over a month still to go and confiscate it. To me, I mean, that is, they're piling up information before they go do that, and so that they know that they got enough stuff that they're locked in.
Wasn't there also, and again, this is information out there that we can't tell you whether it's true or not true, but that someone had confirmed that the deer was seen or had a picture or a video of it roughly 15 miles away from where he's claiming he shot it at.
Yeah, that's what supposedly got this whole thing under investigation in the first place.
Okay, that's what started.
Is that somebody was, and it wasn't even supposedly that photos of it was photos supposedly from the same day. That's what kicked off this investigation, from what they're saying.
Yeah, I mean, if someone has a photo of that deer in a different place on the same day, I'm beyond deductive reasoning now. I've never heard of and I don't care if someone wants to write in and tell us, well, you're speculating. Yeah, I'm speculating. I've never heard of a deer traveling 15 miles in a day.
They do that in a couple evenings. Don't you read TikTok comments, Dad?
They may travel 15. They may travel 15 miles in a day.
There's ones,
but they never leave the area that they're at doing that 15
miles. They'll go 20, 30 miles in a direct line if they want to. At any point, any given time, they'll be on camera.
They're capable of doing that, but
I'm just saying. I've learned a lot of things on TikTok lately, and that's one.
Yeah, there is a lot of people that are saying that it's not uncommon at all for a deer to go 15 miles in a day or something like that.
And people have them on camera on both places and different things.
I don't know what deer you guys are hunting, because that is not normal.
Those are
it's not normal for Iowa. I can tell you that. It's not normal for Montana. It's not normal for Arkansas or Virginia. The places where I have hunted, and I have hunted those deer where I knew where they were. I would see those deer repeatedly. I guess you can't go back too far because you don't have any confirmation of, but when you see the same deer in the same area, chances are he didn't leave and come back.
Yeah.
Especially that far. I would love to see.
Everybody refers to some of these studies, and some of them I think are agreeing that it's not point A to point B 20 miles. And that's what my point was. Yeah, they might go 20 miles in a day. They might go 10 miles in a day, whatever they're doing, but they're going in here, back, here, there, whatever,
right,
like in a certain area. And that's what, like the Mississippi one that I saw that they did their research on, is it looks like when I go shed hunting, when I track myself on Onyx, I'm going back and forth, back and forth. It's like that. It's like when they have one track that's going here, there, back, this way, and they might do 20 miles, but they probably never even made it a mile away from where their home area was.
So,
well, one, two, how are so many people killing all these deer that they know if they all travel that far? And then two, how does nobody else get any new deer?
I think a lot of it is people think that this is not to degrade anybody, because I'm culprit of it too. Not that I think that 20 miles away on two different farms I'm thinking they're the same deer, but people don't recognize deer that well. A lot of times you see a deer and you're like, oh, that's looks like he's got this, this, and this. It's 100% the same deer, when in all reality you could.
It's a deer that looks similar.
I've looked at, me and Joey just saw one last night, the twin tens. The two of those last year, if you set them next to each other, they're the same freaking deer, and you wouldn't really be able to tell the difference. They're different because we saw them together.
So here's one from the University of New Hampshire, and this is the longest ever deer distance. Okay, so this is not the norm. This is the longest one ever recorded. Researchers have discovered the longest distance ever recorded by an adult male whitetail deer, 300 kilometers or close to 200 miles in just over 3 weeks. The finding has important implications for population management and the transmission of disease, especially chronic wasting disease, a fatal neurological disease. So 200 miles,
But it still doesn't clarify whether or not that 200 miles is exactly what Easton's talking about, that he did that within a 1 mile section, or he did it, or did he travel? It doesn't say that he traveled from X to X, from A to B, 200 miles.
Well,
there's a huge difference.
So here I think that this would probably state that you're more correct as far as that he's not going 30 miles away, because it says the buck traveled close to 300 kilometers over 22 days by moving an average of 13.6 kilometers per day, almost 8.5 miles, crossing a major river 7 times, an interstate highway, a railroad, and 8 state highways. So why would
want to know?
But
Does he not get hit?
is he crossing the same river though?
River coming back and
Though they
forth.
just said the
Right.
same major river.
Well, crossing a major river. So, but even too, if you do that math, that deer still wasn't going 15 miles in a day, and he's the longest ever recorded.
That's true.
At TikTok.
All right.
If you're going to sit here and tell us that, you're going to sit here and tell us that 15 miles in a day is common for a deer to go from point A to point B, you're off your rocker. Get yourself figured out. Go do your own research. Stop telling me to.
Well,
Boom.
obviously, it wasn't normal to them either, because they said this extraordinary movement just jumped out from the others we'd tracked. Said, well, at first we thought it was an error. It looks like someone took the GPS collar and drove across the state of Missouri. Okay, so that would also tell you that even to the researchers,
They're like,
It's out of
what
the
the
norm.
this
heck?
is not normal behavior, okay? So deer are not just running 15 miles away. I wish they would, because I think, people would get way less attachments, and I'd be way more excited about checking cameras, because I'd be like, I would maybe sit all day if that was the case, because there's going to be something new show up, and I would never know.
All right, let's get back to the whole reasoning that we were behind the movement of the deer was because of this one particular case. I think that I'm so I know the state of Iowa now charges people not only for poaching, but the size of the deer also adds to the degree of punishment. And I think that all states should do it. I don't even think that there's a state, in my opinion, that does enough for punishing people that poach deer. I feel like that it should be more severe. I think there should be jail time. And maybe that would stop some of what's going on, because I do think in the particular case that we ran into, that we were a part of, this has been several years ago, and I won't use any names, but the young man that we caught, and I say caught because we had almost the identical situation going on here, where a deer was found dead on a piece of property. This particular person stated that they shot it on a different piece of
What do
property.
you mean found dead? It was not found dead. He shot it.
Well, he posted a picture and said he killed it in X place.
Yes.
No, he didn't. He posted a picture. I screenshotted the photo. I went to school with the kid.
Right.
And that was the only smart thing I did. I screenshotted it so that I had the picture, and as you guys probably know if you've been listening to us long enough by now, I know my deer really, really
What
well.
did he post on the post?
He just posted the deer.
That he
Just
killed
a
a deer.
picture of the deer.
Yep.
Yes, and the head cut off. And so he just posted the deer. Okay, just a picture of the deer, and I recognize him in like 2 seconds, and I'm like, that I know that deer. That's a deer we called Flyer. And so I screenshot it, and then I played Buddy and said, hey, man, congrats. That's an awesome deer. Where'd you kill him? And he said, next to my dad's house. And I screenshotted that too. And then I told him he was a poacher because his dad's house was 31 miles away or something. And we just seen the deer
Well, we had video of the deer
yesterday
the
or something.
night before.
Yeah.
The day
And so
Yeah.
I went and woke him up at like 11 at night and said, hey, we got it.
Right.
He shot this deer. And Dad's like, go to bed, dude. You're nuts. Like, he's like, I don't even know it's the same deer. I'm like, I do. Like, we got to do something about this. And you're like, just go to bed. We'll deal with it in the morning.
And so then we looked at it. We compared the photos the video that I had to the deer that was dead, and it's 100%. There's telltale kickers and things like that were absolutely identical.
Mm-hmm.
And so we confirmed it was the same deer. Contacted the DNR, told them what was going on, that we believe this is what's happening. Game warden goes and he decides that he's going to try to press charges against this young man, and so. Don't know how that conversation went or where he stood with that, but there was probably a week, 2 weeks, something like that in there where nothing was done as far as we knew. And so we asked, what's going on? So at the time, I decided that it was in my best interest to intervene and see if I could help the progress along, and simply by talking to the young man.
Well, I think he told us that he didn't have enough to be able to do anything.
Right.
In his opinion.
So anyhow, I approached this young man and happened to be there with a few buddies, and I explained to them that, man, I'm a deer hunter and I'm for someone killing a big deer. The problem that I have with this one is I know for a fact that it was not killed where you said it was. It's not possible because it didn't travel 30 miles. Well, this was before TikTok existed, so they didn't move that far back then. So
that was your best comment yet.
So I let them know that I do know that now it's not about a big deer, and I should be excited for a young man killing a big deer. Now I'm definitely upset that someone has taken this from not just me, but from other people, other hunters. And so anyhow, I kind of left him with that. There were some other young men there involved. And so anyhow, within a day or two, we ended up getting a full confession from the whole group that was there, that this is what happened. This is what they think happened. Game warden was called back in. He revisited the whole thing, and they were able to press charges. And the great thing is I don't think that the kid has done it anymore since then. I think it made an impression, and so, but my point would be is that
and he was younger at that time too, and so maybe that had gave him the ability to think about his actions better and made more of an impact.
I give him big props. I don't know if he would ever listen to this, but I give him big props because he has messaged me multiple times and congratulated me on deer and stuff. Not that I was a huge. I mean, I'm in the family, so it's pretty easy to connect me with that. With him, what is it? The freaking, why can't I think of the trouble he got into, I guess, but it would be very easy for him to dislike me, and it sure seems like, not that I really cared, but it sure seems like he's come around. He hasn't gotten in any more trouble that I know of,
right.
And has even reached out to me, and the point with that is like, out of all people, why would he reach out to me and say, hey, congrats on a really nice buck or something like that after all the history? So in my opinion, that says a lot.
Well, that's because that's called knowing that it was your fault that you shot a deer illegally, not the people that.
Why do you got to do that? You got to ruin.
I'm giving him. Good. I'm saying good for him. That's called taking ownership.
Yeah, you could just say taking ownership. You don't got to make it even worse.
Well,
but I think that's pretty cool. That is a good scenario.
Absolutely, and that's what I was going to say. There's a scenario where the system worked.
Yeah,
we think. I mean, as far as we know, who knows? He could be killing a deer every day. I don't know. I have no way of knowing that, but it doesn't appear that way to us. Also, you mentioned, that he could have disliked you. We don't hate him because of it. I hated the act that was done at the time, and I won't stand for it. I will try to make sure someone is prosecuted in every simple possible way, but I'm not going to hate you for it, and now if someone continues to do it, we're going to continually battle, and that's where I'm going to stand, because I don't believe in it. I don't believe in any way, shape, or form. We're not in the day and age anymore. There might have been a defense back when someone was feeding their family, that they could have the argument that they needed to kill multiple deer, and outside of the rules and regulations and things like that. We don't live in those times anymore.
I don't know.
Shoot,
Let's just say Biden's way to get this economy rolling, I might have to resort to going to shoot deer because I can't afford groceries.
Let's just say that that's the case, though. Let's say that somebody is doing that they're out there and they're shooting deer illegally because they need to feed their family. If they're shooting does, I don't care. Like, I would not be
either way.
I'm saying like if they are truly in a spot where they need to be able to feed their family, they have no other option, and they go and they shoot a doe, which is going to be way more readily accessible than anything else, and they're shooting does, like you said, I don't think that that's really that pertinent to everybody, but if there is a couple people, and hopefully they're not shooting,
hundreds,
a ton,
right.
Yeah, but they shoot a doe or two to be able to get their family through.
They're not looking for they're just, if they are doing something like that, they don't have to clarify if it's a doe or not. It's whatever comes out first. If that's genuinely what they're doing, If it ends up being a huge deer or if it ends up being a fawn, they're probably going to shoot it for the meat because they need the meat either way.
Well, that's what I'm saying is I think if
You're
you're
saying
smart,
it's different if it's a buck and this and that.
I'm saying if you're smart and you know you're needing to do that to feed your family, you shoot a doe because nobody's probably going to be that concerned or be able to recognize or know that they're missing a buck.
No, they would
Especially a big one.
They would be able to know they're missing a buck. They wouldn't
That's
be
what
able
I'm
to
saying.
recognize missing a doe.
Yes.
See, to me, that's not someone that is actually having to feed their family. That's not a poacher. That's someone trying to survive.
Yeah.
I'm going to view that person in a different light. I mean, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is the guy going down the road, goes out, and he decides he wants to kill a buck, and he hasn't killed one during the season, and he pulls out a gun and shoots it. Whether he's already a hunter, meaning he has a hunting license, that's the problem that I see with a lot of this is that hunting and poaching get grouped into one from the non-hunting public. They don't understand the difference. They don't see, and that's because here's a statistic that I would love to know. How many poachers actually are carrying a license? I bet you it's 90%.
Yeah, it's probably pretty high.
They're carrying a hunting license.
So what categorizes as a poacher?
You get convicted for it.
Well, we could look up the term. It came up earlier. Someone who shoots something out. It's not even shoot something. Someone who takes something, because you could poach a tree. You know what I'm saying? You could dig it up and take it off of a place where it's not supposed to be taken from.
Right.
That's considered poaching, or can be considered poaching. But what we're talking about in the whitetail category, primarily, I guess you could throw elk and things like that in there, but when someone illegally takes an animal from public or private property without going through the correct laws in which to do so.
Is that what you got?
No, I totally don't. I was trying to figure out if there was a statistic on that, but I have not found it, so you guys can continue talking.
Well, I mean, what I'm getting at is, so that means that most of our poachers are hunters, and that sucks. That sucks for hunting. That's a black eye for hunting every time it happens.
You're saying, so is what we're saying is that somebody is not a poacher, or they just be, you can't say that the only people that are a poacher is somebody that shoots a deer that never bought a license or a tag. That would definitely be a poacher. But that's not the only people that are poachers.
I'm going to say that the majority of them do have a tag, do have a license.
I agree with you. That's what I'm saying is that's where you got to qualify. What's considered a poacher? So if you shoot a deer on your own property during bow season, you got a tag and everything, but you shoot it with a rifle, is that poaching?
I don't know that it's poaching. It's illegal. I think a terminology might change. But
that's poaching, in my opinion.
I think you
broke the laws that
you didn't kill
are
it
in place to be able
Correct.
to harvest that animal.
Because if you shoot one, like for instance, if you're sitting on your property and you shoot across the fence, you poached a deer from the neighbor.
Right. But I mean, still, I think that deer could have been the one that you shot on your property with a rifle. That deer could have been going over to your neighbors too.
Absolutely.
So I think that you still poached the deer.
I would agree with that statement.
So basically, we're saying anything that violates laws would be considered poaching. Now, here's a question I think would be more interesting. What do you think poaching has gotten better or worse over the last 10 years, 20 years?
I think the best person we could have on here would be a game warden to ask him that question. I think it's because there's a couple things. I think that technology is probably helping people get caught.
Mm-hmm.
But technology is also giving people the ability to do it more and not get caught. Meaning,
I feel like it's made them smarter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that they can be smarter about it. They got equipment now that fits in a vehicle. For instance, a crossbow. Crossbow can be fired from inside of a vehicle where a bow can't without making any noise. Without having to use a rifle. You got they're not readily available. You can still get one though. But by putting a suppressor on a gun. Those are things that have come along that would add to it. But at the same time, trail cameras are out there everywhere. There's just been new technology. Social media probably has caught more poachers than anything. Because people that do dumb things, which shooting something illegally, they then they continue on by promoting that they did that.
I feel like it's probably not as bad now.
You don't think it's as bad?
Mm-mm. Because I think that the sheer amount of cell cams that are out there now, and just like we were talking about the other day, that there's really probably not very many deer left in the United States that aren't on somebody's camera. And then of those, it's probably 70% of them are on a cell cam, maybe 60% or something like that. The amount of information, and not only of just the deer, but of the roads, of the gates, of the places where somebody can go and do those things. Now a guy, instead of him getting that information 2 weeks later or a week later or 3 weeks later, it goes to his phone. He knows right away, oh, there's somebody on my property that's not supposed to be there.
Well, I mean, and I think to go along with that statement, that's like a big deer killed now. It can be known about in 50 states. It can be known about globally in minutes, in literally minutes from the time it hits the internet that this deer is dead, and it can't be taken back. Once it's been posted out there, once it goes out there, it's there. And so I would think that would lead to some hesitation, hopefully, from people. But
I would think so.
You would certainly think so.
Especially because those...
I'd say we need to get a warden on, because that would be fun. It would be kind of interesting to pick his brain on just that in general, as well as like some of these situations you hear about on social. What do you think about them, or what is this or that?
Yeah, I don't. He wouldn't be able to talk about specific cases, but he could definitely shed some light.
Well, he should be able to talk about a specific case if he ain't the one on it, or it's ain't in his state. He should be able to say what his opinion is on it. He's got no connection to it, nor does the state.
Maybe a retired one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either way, I'd be curious. Instead of us just throwing numbers out.
So, what do you guys think, though? Do you think that they're doing enough for when they convict someone? I mean,
I think it's,
and the only other thing, though, Warren, where I say that, you go pull up some of these cases. I just saw one earlier where it was like 135 deer this guy poached in Texas. And they were trophy deer. He's killing them off of some of the biggest ranches in Texas, and he's like written a book now about how he did it.
Is that the one that they nicknamed
the Prince Poaching?
Yeah.
Holy cow!
So, but and then there was
Imagine poaching that many things and making money off of how you got caught.
That's such bull.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think that book should even be allowed to be put out for him to be able to make the money off of it.
Yeah.
I
think that's where I think now you're talking about what is the fines enough, right? So, for instance, if this deer is to be, if this guy gets prosecuted in Ohio, with the Ohio system and how this all works, the score restitution is taken into consideration. And I think it would come out to like 31,000 or something when I was looking at it. And then so I'm sure, with everything else, he may end up at, I don't know, 50 grand or more in fines. I don't know.
I think that's really high.
I don't.
If you're just going off of some of the other, again, we're throwing numbers out that we have no idea on. But if you're going off any of the other ones that we do know about, that's like way high.
Well, 30, but
what is not high? What is too high, and what's not high enough?
Well, my opinion on that is going to be totally different than what is actually being done. Like, for instance, some of the ones that we know about have been anywhere from 10 to 30,000. The 30,000 one I know about was multiple deer, like, and a bunch of other charges with it.
Right. Montana went to a trophy type deal that they charge according to how big the animal is as well.
Restitution.
I would 100% support your thing on jail time too, because I'm in on that. I was just going off the fact we're assuming what he was going to get.
You're saying you don't think it'll be that much that he's going to get fined.
Yes. I'm saying I don't. As much as it sucks, I don't think that.
Well, I'm just saying I think if they're going to do, if they can, shooting out of a vehicle, that everything else that they can tack on, I don't know what it comes to, but you got at least 30,000 there, and then that's not counting just the poaching fine itself. But sure, let's just say it's not 50 grand. In my opinion, I agree. I don't think that's anywhere near enough. And I don't agree. I agree as well. I don't think it should be a fine. I think it should be jail time. And here's the reason,
And
because
work.
all these.
Then they put them to work, going to do something.
Well, you know that I find really interesting? All these people that are commenting on the on this video, a whole bunch of them. So I posted a video, talking about this and just letting people know this is what the fine would be if he gets charged and blah blah blah. And there's a whole bunch of people saying, it's who cares? It's just a deer, No, that fine's way too much. It's just a deer. So here's my thing then. If it's just a deer, why do that in the first place?
Why do what? Why any
shoot
fun?
one illegally? So is what all these people are saying is it's just a deer.
You're
He
taking
shouldn't
the
have to pay
importance out of it.
$30,000. Then it's just a deer. Okay, so then why even go shoot it in the first place?
Yeah, it's a justification of what
If
they
it's
did
just
wrong.
a deer.
I can't
Yeah.
answer that.
That's
I
why I
totally
think
get
that if you make it where it's, minimum 6 months jail time or something, then when you're driving down it, it'd be like, man, that's a giant, driving down the road, that's a huge deer, but
There's
it ain't worth 6
big
months
old
of jail time.
cells too.
Yeah, well, here's my point is, and I don't know this particular gentleman, so let's just say it's someone else. They don't have $30,000. Okay? If they don't have it, the state can't get their money, no matter what they do, you can't squeeze a turnip and get anything out of it if it ain't there. Jail time you can get.
Oh yeah.
So how do they do that then? They give them jail time or something?
I don't have a clue. I would assume
sure
that
they
they
have
can
to, like,
garnish
a payment plan or
I would say
something.
they can garnish wages or something like that, where they're paying on it, $75 a week for the next
50
20 years or 50 years.
I want to know how many liberal comments we're going to get, like calling us liberals on this.
I don't
Why?
know.
I don't
Because
think we're
everybody
being very
says it's
liberal.
ridiculous to send more people to jail because all it's going to do is cost more tax dollars and stuff. I agree with Dad. Send them to jail and put them to work.
Make them do something.
Freaking start
The whole point is
the
whole
where
point
brother
is
where art thou or whatever. They're chopping or freaking hitting the railroads and hitting the rocks and crap. Make them go do that.
the
I'm
whole
in on
point is to hopefully not be sending anybody to jail. Is to make it where I think the problem that you have is, especially let's take this the Ohio scenario is the best one. If he gets away with that,
Now there's so many people that know that they can get away with it too.
well, that you have other people that know they can get away with it. But let's just say that maybe the whole reason he shot this deer in the first place is because he needed the money.
Yeah.
And he's looking at it, and to him, he just sees a $30,000 cash sign out there. That's supposedly what he sold it for, or thinks. Which one? I think there's a big misconception on how much money you can really make from large deer,
Right.
just so that people know. But maybe he's thinking
far as
Bass
buying the
Pro is
rack,
going to buy this
You're
or
probably
whatever.
gonna make more money off somebody buying the rack than you would be of shops calling you to talk about your deer, crap like that.
I don't know. Well, so let's just say, what's the upside? If he manages to shoot this deer, doesn't get caught,
Whatever he can
he's
get out of
he's
it.
probably thinking, man, I might be able to make $100,000
You ain't making
on
100
this,
grand,
you know?
sorry, dude.
He may think that.
I know. I'm saying that.
He might think I'm gonna be able to kill this deer, make $100,000.
Yeah.
That this right here is the way that I'm able to get out of this position that I'm in, and now it's worth it, right? Because then he's looking at, well, worst case scenario, I'm probably not gonna go to jail, but I might have to pay a fine of $30,000 that I don't have. So why? What's there to lose?
I go to the bank theory. So why not? The bank has the money, and it ain't like I'm taking it from any particular person, and I need the money, so I just go in and take it. And I mean, there's laws that say I can't do that, and then they have the right to shoot me and everything else for doing that. So
I struggle very hard to follow that one.
no, what I'm saying is that
You saying you can't rob a bank?
you can't rob a bank, so why can you rob from the wildlife or anything else that for that matter? I mean, it's just in a different context is all.
Yeah.
Well, so here's the other thing: is
The
let's
bank
say,
is an extreme case
Yeah.
because it's directly money.
Yeah.
well, let's flip this.
Yeah,
let's
I
flip this
understand.
though. In this, yeah, Dad's going way more Western than I
Oh
am.
no,
Shoot him in the
because
head.
we don't even want to talk eye for an eye because that's really where it comes down to that I truly believe.
On you get to shoot one of their deer.
No,
I think he wants to shoot them.
I'm like, take fingers, toes, something like that.
My God.
You know,
Dad's like, you see that little trigger finger? Bye-bye.
Yeah, so we'd know whether he does it again or not if he ain't got no fingers
I
left.
watched a movie with Denzel Washington last night, and now all I can think of is dad. That he's like, Denzel's like hunting this mafia, right, in Sicily, Italy, which Denzel Washington's such a badass. And they put the dude's hand on the table, right, like tape it to the table, and this other dude comes over and cuts his hand off, right, and then they give him his hand and put it in a ice bucket
Bag.
and let him go to the hospital to see if he can get his hand back on.
Oh,
and I'm
that's
seeing
cruel.
like dad saying to the poacher, you know, put your hand on the table. It's time.
Well, I just think that sometimes we just don't look at things.
Okay, let's look at this flip though. So let's say that the guy is loaded. Okay?
Okay, he's got a lot of money.
Got a lot of money. Makes $500,000 a year. Makes plenty of money. And he sees this deer, and it's a 230-some-inch deer. And he is, obviously, if he's making that much money, he's probably at least somewhat astute. So he looks up the fines, looks up everything, and he looks at that as one of two ways. Either one, I can shoot this deer, and I can get away with it, and I killed a 240-some-inch deer, and I get all the recognition of killing this giant deer, and I get to have this deer or whatever. Or two, I get caught, and I got to pay a measly $30,000 fine and this other stuff and go on with my life.
Right. So was the risk worth the gain?
Yeah, why would he care?
Yeah, I mean
Now I think if you told that guy he got 6 months in jail, well, I can't have that. I'm making $500,000 a year. I can't be sitting in a jail cell for 6 months.
That's $250,000 a year now. No, I get it. I think
You're
the
preaching
main
to the
purpose
choir.
though would be that if you could implement something a little more serious, maybe you would slow it down. But then again, you're the same one that just said you don't think it's as bad anymore. So maybe you don't need it.
I don't think that it's probably as bad just because they have to be. Cell cams have made. There's just a camera everywhere. I mean, you gotta.
I understand that, but I also know certain places in Iowa's pretty populated where I could walk for a long ways and there ain't gonna be a single cell cam anywhere.
But
Which is saying,
and there's
I mean,
no
that's a
deer on
good-
any of them.
No, there's a lot of deer on them. That's my point. Is that I know there's a lot of cell cams out there, but there's still a lot of untouched. Not untouched, but as far as you're not getting record of everything that's out there.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is the reason I think it's probably down is just because 10 years ago, your chances of getting away with it were a lot
Pretty
better. You know, they knew every camera. They could walk by a camera and have it take a picture of them, and they could take the card out.
Mm-hmm.
They were okay. They weren't going to get busted right then, you know, or they could destroy the camera or do whatever they want. Now that's not the case.
No, you know,
that
it was put a mask on.
Photo's already gone. Yeah, but you still. I put cell cams at gate entrances and on roads and things where, sure, you can have a mask on, but only got your plate.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You can answer it a lot of ways with what you were asking as far as do we think it's does enough get done? And I think my simple answer is I think it depends on the area, which sucks. Because I think if you just look in Iowa, there's some counties or some zones that do a very good job and they keep their ducks in a row. And there's other counties that don't do so great. And you hear some horror stories of things that are going on and stuff. So I think that as a whole, I'd say that it's doing, just in Iowa, I think it does pretty well, especially for the size of deer that are in Iowa, that have a lot of incentive for people to go do something stupid. And you either don't hear about it or they just don't get caught or it's actually somewhat in control. So,
Yeah, I don't know. Once in a while we'll have this situation where you start finding several dead deer, show up that been shot off the road or heads missing and things like that. We haven't caught everyone. That's again where I come back to social media has probably caught more poachers than anything. I just think that people as in general can't resist the opportunity, especially because even the poacher has to get somewhat lucky that he kills a 230-inch deer. You know, would this be as big a deal? Number one, he wouldn't even have been on the podcast probably had he shot a 130-inch deer in Ohio.
yeah.
You know, so the bigger the deer, the more
You got to show it.
notoriety that it
Yeah.
takes on, and the more notoriety, then things start to look at. I mean, it's no different than the states will tell you, at least this state will tell you, if you kill a big deer, first thing that you want to do is contact them.
Yep.
And that way,
Leave it all as is.
Leave it all as is, and make sure that they can come and see it as it goes, and do the things, and that takes away from the hunting experience some, but it's where we are anymore.
I don't mind that though, because then it gives, if not that I've killed a deer that big, but
Right.
if I were to ever kill one that big, it's gonna give me a lot more peace of mind.
Absolutely.
To call and be like, hey, check this stuff out. I mean, I feel like even if you did want to go look at it, you go look at it, but you probably shouldn't.
Right.
Not that I'm saying you should, but call them, do that, and then after that, it's like, okay, now that people can say whatever they want, because you're going to get crap for it, but you're also going to get a lot of stuff that you don't ever have to worry about, because
Right.
it's been confirmed. You're good. There's no question in place. So to me, I think it's kind of a good thing.
For sure.
Especially if I'm having to do that, that means I definitely killed something pretty freaking big. So
That's
I'd
like,
be in on that.
I got called in one time on bullwinkle.
You got called in once, and Dad got called in once on, was it Juice?
No, I don't think you got called in.
Just someone questioning.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I got called in on bullwinkle, and they said that they were looking at a picture with 3 dots of blood on it. And
Holes.
They thought
They
were
said
yeah,
that you shot
yeah, they
it.
said that I shot it with a 22 3 times right behind the shoulder. And so the warden calls me, and
It was like for anybody that shoots a gun, it was like way less than a sub MOA group. So like less than a 1-inch group.
well, the thing is, we know the warden, and the warden calls me, and Alyssa's in the truck with me, and she's like, "Oh, the warden," and I'm like, "No, okay." Anytime the warden's calling you, it's usually not the greatest thing, okay? So I'm glad you're excited to talk to him, and so I answer it, and he's like, I just got to do my job. He's like, I can't say one way or another if you did this or not, but I got to do my job. Do you have the cape and everything that I could come and see?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I already froze the cape, so I'd rather not unfreeze it. But does video work? Because I can show you video.
Of him getting shot.
And he's like,
and falling over. And
he's
dying.
like, yeah, that would work. Video would work. And so I just sent him the whole clip. And I was like, who's stupid enough to think that I went and shot this thing with a rifle 3 times and knows we film everything and managed to pull this all off somehow?
You should be going to shoot some pro competitions if you could shoot that small of a group on a moving animal that's alive.
Yeah.
Well, it just goes to show, though. But again, look what contributed to that: social media.
Yeah.
Because when we put the picture out there of Warren with the deer, that people were like, "Oh, this is." So, is that happening? I mean, right there's a situation where had he not been diligent enough and get on that, could people have started speculating, and then there would have been more conversation and things like that, and it could have gone way the wrong way on social media before you could rectify it. So I think that does happen, and that sucks that we're at an age where now you kill something, you have to call the game warden first. The reason I say it sucks is because it's supposed to be about the hunt and all that, but it just has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to live with that. You got to do the right thing. And I agree. I haven't killed a deer like that I have to worry about. So
Yeah, I think I'm good.
I think
I'm good for a while.
I'm pretty sure I don't have one coming up that's going to look like that either. So we're good. All right. Are you looking up wacky facts or what?
I am.
Did you find what you're looking for?
I was trying to find one about the mafia, but
Although very unrare, you can overdose on cough drops.
really,
I don't know if that's a thing or not. I think a teacher told me that one time to get me to stop taking them.
why?
Probably because she was annoyed at the rappers or something when I was little in elementary school. I think I had a cold. I think that's where that came from, actually, now I'm thinking about it.
Holy moly. Well, I think the one thing, I guess so that I think everyone understands how adamant we are about poaching and where we stand. I don't think there's any doubt. Maybe I stand even a little farther over than these two do, but then again, maybe they stand a little differently as opposed to, or as on a daily basis. I think Warren definitely will throw his opinion out there sooner than I do. So, but
no, never.
Yeah.
Warren's not an opinionated soul.
Gotcha.
I didn't have to throw my opinion out there. That dude was smart enough to go and let everybody know.
All right, are you going to do this?
The shortest war in history lasted 38 minutes.
Oh, yeah, that's
Those
Which
guys
one?
went to take care of business. When
Which
the
one was
Sultan of British protected Zanzibar died and the new one took over without British approval in 1896. The Brits were not happy. Tension escalated when Sultan Khalid bin Bargash refused to step down, but the British warship spent less than 40 minutes bombarding the palace before Khalid fled, marking the very quick end of the Anglo-Zanzibar War.
How do you even
38
consider
minute
that a
war.
war? Boring. I need to get a green and a red button, or like a woohoo or a boo-hoo
Yeah,
button,
I
so that
agree.
I can rate his things. That was terrible.
My opinion, that sucked.
That was
How?
awful. That was just really boring.
Some sea cucumbers fight with their guts.
See, that's better. That's
threatened,
weird.
they'll
What's a
shoot
sea
out.
cucumber?
When
What-
threatened, they'll shoot out their internal organs, which are poisonous to predators. They'll sometimes get rid of their entire digestive system, but the organs grow back.
See, now that's facts I can use in something.
Yeah, sure, you're going to use that.
Yeah. Sea cucumbers.
I'm just thinking of like a boxing match from here,
Uh-huh.
It'll be weird.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Big reminder, this is the last one that's going to be up on Raised Hunting's YouTube page. After that, all of the podcasts that go on YouTube will go under YouTube podcast. Under the Raised Hunting podcast. Sorry, said that back.
Oh my gosh.
I meant what you knew.
If you watch this on YouTube, there's a link in the description, and you need to go to that link, and you need to subscribe to the new The Raised Hunting Podcast channel, because we're switching everything over. I'm not going to keep explaining, because I think the more we explain, the more we confuse. So, link in the description, follow it, subscribe to our new YouTube channel for The Raised Hunting Podcast, and that's where you'll find all of our interesting video and whatever else that we do on this podcast. Good?
Good.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
We out.